David, we just thought we'd take a few minutes to talk about some of the kind of trending legal topics that you're going to be involved with over the next few weeks.
Yeah,
A lot going on.
there's a lot going on. A lot of it, obviously, is very much follow up from initial speeches given by the Prime Minister almost immediately after the election. So, I think the thing that's certainly going to be the most newsworthy item, whether it becomes the most important item, then we'll have to see is the extension of right to rent and the requirement for landlords. And I should also point out people who have lodgers. Everyone seems to forget about lodgers. To check the immigration status of their tenants or occupiers. The Home Office is pretty clear that's being rolled out. There has been some evaluation, but we're not evaluating whether or not it happens. We're merely evaluating how it happens. The only other real question is how fast it happens and where it goes first. So there's some discussion as to whether it's going to be London first or some other part of the country, or whether it's going to be everywhere, or what the staging is going to be. But it's coming soon, it's coming in the autumn, and it's time for people to really stop thinking that it's the Midlands, it's coming, and we need to be worried about it.
Quite. And you mentioned in the Queen's speech that Cameron dropped a bit of a bombshell, that he indicated that there was going to be some form of a mandatory landlord licensing across the UK, but we've actually kind of drilled down onto the fact that he was actually talking about HMOs, wasn't he?
Yeah, that was a surprising line in his speech, and led to a number of very rapid letters, including from the RLA. We got clarity, and we've been told that it's about a consultation on extending mandatory HMO licensing. We're not sure exactly what the proposals are. We're starting to hear indications that they're going to remove the 3 or more stories obligation. So it will be a situation. So currently mandatory licensing is 5 or more occupiers, 3 or more stories, but it will just change to 5 or more occupiers, irrespective of the number of stories, to avoid the slight loophole, in a sense, that exists in mandatory licensing, where you can have 2 stories and ram in as many people as you like and potentially not be licensable. So that obviously will cut across some local authority licensing schemes. It's not totally clear what will happen to those. Presumably they will now fall by the wayside. It will also mean, of course, a great many local authorities will have to go around licensing a lot of property they didn't previously have to license. Some of them may not have the resources. It will mean that landlords, regrettably, of course, will be caught out because they're not aware of the changes. And of course, it may encourage other local authorities to create more additional licensing as well, if they consider that it doesn't cover things that they want it to deal with. So there's quite a lot of potential there for complex and confusing situations. And again, timeline is uncertain. We don't know what the timeline is on that. But it's very quick and easy to do.
And there's also the issue of smoke detectors coming in as well.
Yeah, there are draft smoke detector regulations. The likelihood is those will come into force in October. We're a bit concerned about those because one of the things they say is that you have to have a smoke detector. There's no reference to the applicable British standard. I assume the government's not intending that landlords get canaries. So one hopes that they're going to adjust the regulations to make a reference to the proper British standard. And of course those regulations also require carbon monoxide detectors, where you have a solid fuel appliance. So not many landlords. I'm a little surprised about this. One would have thought the government might have actually tried to attack the biggest area of carbon monoxide poisoning, which of course is gas appliances, not solid fuel appliances. But I mean, obviously from a landlord's point of view, rather than buy a carbon monoxide detector, you don't have to buy. But we'll see if they change their position on that. And of course, the other thing that's coming, of course, is the Deregulation Act and all the changes to Section 21 in October, which is a huge issue. And we're starting to get first looks at first drafts of the standardised Section 21 notice. It's looking from that there is going to be some preliminary requirements that landlords will have to give tenants before they can give a Section 21 notice at all. That will include having the smoke detectors we've talked about. It may also include giving tenants copies of the government's How to Rent guide, and that may in fact be rewritten as a result of this as well. So there's quite a lot of new stuff. There's more paper. Yet again, so people's laser printers will be working overtime, but we'll have to see how things play out as we move through the autumn.
This is quite explosive, excuse the pun, stuff, David, because some of these things that I wasn't aware of. Do you feel that with the recent tax changes as well, and this new sort of raft of legislation coming, that some landlords may just feel that they don't want to get involved in the private rented sector, and existing landlords may decide to exit? Are you getting any feeling of landlord sentiment?
I've certainly seen comment from landlords saying it's not worth being a landlord, and there are petitions being pushed about the tax changes onto the government petition site. And if those get enough signatures, the government's obligated to review it. It only needs 10,000 signatures to get to the first stage. It needs 100,000 signatures to be compulsorily reviewed. So I would hope that landlords take that up. Please.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're not just RLA petitions. There are other petitions that can be signed. If one of those can get to the necessary thresholds, then that might change the tax situation. I don't think the government is 100% committed to those tax changes. Then they can't be yet, because the finance bill has not been fully finished. So there is opportunity still to push on that. It may be that they will give with one hand and take away with the other. So it may be that we've had to take. There may be some other form of tax incentive that the government's prepared to offer. As a rule, as most people know, governments don't tend to reverse themselves, but they may in fact ameliorate the effects of what they're doing if we push hard enough. And that's something we need to keep pushing on. I hope landlords don't leave the sector. If some choose to leave, it'll be regrettable, because there'll almost certainly be landlords that we would prefer to keep in the sector. If it was bad landlords leaving the sector, I wouldn't be so bothered. But not all of them are paying tax already, so they may not see it as such a burden. I hope that the other changes don't immediately cause landlords to leave the sector. I think for many good landlords with quality property, those changes will be less damaging. I think, though, we'll have to see over time. It may be, as these things often are, of course, that we're all getting terribly het up about something that in the end doesn't make the hugest of difference. We saw the same thing, tenancy deposit protection. People got very excitable about, yes, it has caused problems for people, yes, it has caused burdens for landlords, but a great many landlords, most of the time, these days don't get terribly upset about it. And one would prefer that these things don't happen, but it's important that we don't immediately say that the world is ending just because we have to comply with something.
Well, I think, just to finish, it's so important that landlords get the right advice from the right source, and that's one of the reasons that we launched the legal FAQs category on property tribes in partnership with Anthony Gold, so that we can make sure that landlords are informed of their obligations, and also through interviews like this encourage them to have a voice and have their say about the future of the private rented sector. So it's great to have your input and to keep updating what's going on. It's going to be exciting times ahead.
Yes, thank you. The internet is a great source for information. It's a dangerous source, though, so getting information from the right source is definitely, and having a good, reliable source to keep picking information off and keep getting updates from is vital, I think. And that's one of the great services you provide.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you for your input.